Hey, and welcome back to Yogi's Garage. I am Yogi, and I'm here to talk about my 2005 Porsche 911 Turbo S Cabriolet. For my loyal followers, you know that I purchased this car a little bit over a year ago, and it is in pretty good condition. There's really not much wrong with it other than a few things like the headlight switch, broken steering lock, and faulty window regulator. Since all of that has already been solved, the last thing on my bucket list for this car is to resolve the radio. And when I purchased this car, it came with an aftermarket Kenwood radio that was manufactured back in 2014. At the time, the previous owner spent about $5,000 to $6,000 upgrading the sound system. They decided to go with a focal sound system, which is, from what I understand, extremely high end, and they replaced the dashboard speakers and the door speakers as well as the subwoofer, and also included a amplifier and two three-way crossovers. But here's the kicker. None of it works. Yeah, I can get some sound out of a few speakers, but the sound is really crackly, and I'm going down the path where I believe it is a blown amplifier. So before I go and spend any money on a new amplifier, we need to test everything out and see where the fault is specifically. If there's one thing that I've learned about owning these cars is do not throw money at these cars to solve the problem, because you'll end up throwing all of your money. So let's see if I can get this radio fixed by using some good old-fashioned Yogi magic and maybe save some money along the way. So with that, let's fix it. Okay, I've already started disconnecting everything in this for the sound system because I want to test out the amplifier, and the focal amp is right here. And if you've been following me, you know that the sound system is supposed to be awesome if it works. I fear that the amplifier has blown, but I got to test it. But before I test it, I got to check all the wiring. Therefore, I'm going to pull the liners out from inside of the frunk. But I need to tag everything so that I know where everything goes back. I'm not really too worried about the speakers. I have a few tagged. The other ones will be a matter of elimination. I can run a 9-volt battery to figure out where that is. It's these right here that I had to tag. And these are the crossovers. They're K2 power crossovers. And I don't know where the failure is. So I'm trying to eliminate all the complexity and just get a head unit to amplifier to speakers route, bypass all of this, and see what the hell is going on. I've got 12 volts. I've already proven that. What's interesting, though, is that I don't get 12 volts to the light. This one right here, not even close. So the light does not illuminate up here. And for a while there, I wasn't getting a temperature reading from my sensor, but now it's working. So there may be a short in here somewhere that I'm gonna have to figure out. Because look, this is a wiring harness right here. Look at this. This is a wiring harness. It looks really nice. I mean, they've done a good job. But I don't know where any of this stuff goes. Look, this right here. Where the hell does that go? So I'm gonna have to figure it all out. This is one of the downfalls of buying a used car, especially with custom work done to it, because then you got to reverse engineer if there's something wrong with it, because you're not the one who put it in. All right, I'm going to yank this out, get the rest of it out. As you can see, I've got the trim already taken out. I've got the liner. This is an interesting space saver wheel, and the covers. All right, let's finish yanking this out. So I want to start by disconnecting all of this, and now that it's all tagged up, then it's just a matter of disconnecting it. Try not to go too far out so that you don't lose a screw like I just did. Okay. All right, all the wires are taken out, and I've unscrewed it. They just use some self-tapping screws. And I don't think there's anything wrong with these crossovers, but and they're wicked expensive. I'm not sure if I'll put these back. Maybe I should just sell them. Put that right there. Okay, so now you can see that the wiring just kind of runs back here. and loops around. So I'm gonna figure all of this out. Yeah, there's the medium density fiberboard down there that they just taped to the body to give it a place to tap into. Okay, let me yank all this out. All right, now that everything is out, you can see the medium density fiberboard that they used and some kind of adhesive, and then I guess they held it in place with this until it dried and then didn't come back and take it off. All right, no matter. So the wiring is interesting because I've got two sets of wires coming out. So here's the wires from the head unit, right? They're supposed to be RCAs. And then I have this wiring harness bundle that I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this used to go to the amplifier. And it has matching inputs and outputs. So these are your ins and these are your outs. And then these wires are looped around to this side. So, where are the inputs? I think I'm making progress here. Reverse engineering is really difficult, and it takes a lot of patience to figure out what other people have done to an OEM car. And what I found is interesting. And I did say that the speaker, the tweeter over here, and I said earlier that I wasn't getting a signal, and come to find out what the previous owner did is retrofit the existing speaker grill. And it's a good thing. These are good speakers. These are focal speakers. But what they ended up having to do is to kind of make it work. They use self-tapping screws, which are, I'm not sure about that. But then here, it looks like the tweeter goes here. So what they did is they had let's see how many channels there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 channels. The amplifier that they bought was a 6-channel amp. So what they did was disconnect the rear passenger speakers altogether. These two were both just snipped off. I stripped it down so I could figure out where this was going, and I found out that those are going there. So they converted a 6-channel, which was, the originals were a mix of a mid and a high, and they separated them into 2 channels on the dash. And I got the speaker to work again. It was magnetized to the dashboard frame, so that's why it wasn't working, because it fell out. The adhesive here didn't hold. I'm sure it was heat related, and it just fell apart. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reattach everything, of course, test the speaker to make sure that it works, and then put it back in. So now what I'm doing is trying to track down the subwoofer, because that's a separate input-output. And something funny is Yogi Mama was here a little while ago, and she said, when I walked out here and I saw what you were doing, it looked like this was the good, clean car, and that one was the beat-up, bratty car. And I'm like, oh, man, really? I just took out the liners. It's not a ratty car. But anyway, lots of wiring, lot to figure out, but I'm getting there. I just made a makeshift drawing to kind of get things straight in my head. So you can see this is the front of the car. And that's the head unit. These are the dashboard speakers, steering wheel, door speakers, rear speakers. Like I said, the rears were cut. And everything went into the OE harness, the speakers. So the speakers come in here. The harness is being routed from the crossovers. So the crossovers. So once the amp receives the signal from the head unit, the amp then sends the boosted signal to the 2 crossovers, each one controlling 3 channels. These are 3-channel crossovers. Then from there, they go to the harness, and that's where we are. Okay, I think I got it figured out. There's all kinds of wackiness going on. For first and foremost, I've tested all the speakers. I believe they're all working. Here's what happened. The tweeter in the high range fell out. That it was epoxied into this thing, and it fell out. It just came out. You see the glue came out, and what ended up happening is it did exactly what you see there. Is it became magnetized to the dashboard frame, which will then kill the signal, because then the voltage is going to go everywhere but to the speaker. So I'm going to need to fix those, and then both of them that happened. That's why I wasn't getting any sound up front. So this is what the sound stage looks like. The rear speakers are disconnected. I can reconnect them if I put another signal or another amp in there, but I'm not going to do that. So the rear speakers are dead. So the previous owner upgraded the door speakers, which you've seen in my previous videos. They're fiberglass encased, and they're basically coaxial speakers. So they have a mid-range and a tweeter integrated, right? So those go in, and then the custom subwoofer, which is there in the corner, goes through as well, and it all comes out, except for the subwoofer, it all comes out to the wiring harness, the OE wiring harness right here. So the previous owner paid a lot of money to have this done, and they did a really good job. They use high quality cabling. It's just unfortunate that it goes down to a smaller gauge, but nevertheless, the sub then comes out and it's bridged across 2 channels, and it comes out and it plugs into this. So this is how it works, right? So the outputs from the head unit come out, and it is left, right, front, left, right, rear, or doors, and then sub right there, right? So those go through the amp, and the amp kicks it out into 6 channels, and then these plug in to the crossover from here. So then they get processed by the amp. The signal is boosted, and then I send it out through the channels into the crossover. And then from the crossover, it splits into 3 inputs here, or 3 outputs here, and then 3 outputs here. And you can see tweeter, mid, and woofer. So now that I've got that figured out, I've got all the speakers working that should work. And now I can wire in the subwoofer, because that is here. It wasn't labeled at all, and it requires 5 and 6. So I'm going to configure 5 and 6. I'm going to configure the high pass filter on that to just pass sub sound, and then everything else will be mid-range and high. Okay. I know it's a lot of gobbledygook words, but that's basically how an high-end stereo works. So let me see if I can get it all to work. All right, so you saw and you heard in that video that this thing is ready to go. I got it all worked out. So what was the final issue? What did I determine? Well, these tweeter speakers fell out. They became delaminated, and they fell out from behind the speaker grill here, and they magnetized to the dashboard frame, thus shorting out that channel. I believe the whole channel shorted out. And so yeah, now that that's all done, I've got all the high-end speakers plugged back in, ready to go. The bass is working, everything is good. So now I got to rewire everything. So what I want to do is I want to use some wire loom, some of the fabric loom, and just tidy all this up a little bit. It already looked pretty good, but I want it to look better, all right? So in order to fix this, I'm thinking I'm gonna have to disconnect that tweeter. And unfortunately, they soldered the wire. So I'm gonna have to make a quick disconnect right there and just cut it out and bring it to the table. Yeah, let's do that. All right, I think this is probably a good place right there. Yeah. think I'm just gonna risk it and unscrew it. It was a pain with the other speaker to do this because it wouldn't bite the wire. There, okay. There, all right. So now I got them both disconnected. I did the other side already. Let's bring it to the workbench and see what's up. All right, so it's on my workbench now, and what I want to do is get a lot of this old adhesive off, and I'm using a couple of different methods to just pop that off. And you can see I've already done that here because I want a smooth surface, and I'll probably come back with a file or a sandpaper just to sand that down a little bit to get some of the old adhesive off. And then I got to figure out a way of sticking it permanently, so I'm thinking either a JB Weld, doesn't matter what color, to see if that will hold it. I think it will. What we got to avoid is doing what they did. You can see they managed to get some of the adhesive on the speaker and cause a little bit of damage there. So we need to be careful with that. All right. I'm about ready to put in the last of the deck speakers. In fact, all of the speakers. And I made a few modifications. I put some quick release here. And I'll wrap these in electrical tape to keep them from shorting out. And then you can see here, I mean, it's not ideal. I get it. It's not ideal. But the JB Weld seems to be working just fine. And if the JB Weld they used, which was just a couple of dollops, lasted 10 years, and this will probably last at least 10. And last but not least is the main woofer here fell out from this frame. This is the original Bose frame. And they were using self-tapping screws for some reason to hold it in place. Terrible job. So I took the black frame out, took the threads, pulled the bolts out, and then used the combination of Monster double-sided adhesive as well as plastic bonding super glue. And you can see it right there, and that should hold it, and the weight of the speaker itself will hold it in place indefinitely. So I think I've resolved the issue. So I've got one in over there. I've got that done. I'm just about finished doing the interior as well as the front. So let's go ahead and finish this up. All right. There. Let's put the sound on.